The year is 1967. Oxford philosopher Philippa Foot presents a moral puzzle that will captivate and torment thinkers for decades to come. The trolley problem.
Imagine a runaway trolley barreling down the tracks. Ahead, 5 unsuspecting people are in its path. You stand at a switch with the power to divert the trolley onto a side track. However, there's a catch. One person stands on the side track. Do you pull the lever, sacrificing 1 life to save 5? Or do you do nothing, bearing witness to a greater tragedy?
This deceptively simple scenario ignited a firestorm of ethical debate. Foot's trolley problem wasn't about finding the right answer. It was about probing the very foundations of our moral intuitions. It forced us to confront the agonizing conflict between our aversion to harming others and our desire to minimize suffering. The trolley problem became a springboard for exploring consequentialism, deontology, and the complex calculus of moral decision-making. Enter Judith Jarvis Thomson, a renowned American philosopher. In her 1971 essay, A Defense of Abortion, Thomson didn't just engage with the trolley problem, she revolutionized it.
I recognized the power of thought experiments to illuminate complex moral issues. I introduced variations on Foot's original dilemma, adding nuance and complexity to the debate. These variations challenge deeply held beliefs about rights, duties, and the very nature of moral responsibility.
One of Thomson's most significant contributions was the distinction between killing and letting die. Is there a moral difference between actively causing someone's death and passively allowing it to happen? The trolley problem in its classic form seems to suggest there is. Pulling the lever feels more like a direct intervention, a deliberate act of killing, but is doing nothing truly a morally neutral stance. Thomson compels us to grapple with the uncomfortable possibility that inaction too can have deadly consequences. The trolley problem throws into sharp relief the tension between 2 dominant ethical frameworks, consequentialism and deontology. Consequentialists like John Stuart Mill argue that the morality of an action is determined solely by its consequences. In the trolley problem, a consequentialist would likely argue that sacrificing 1 life to save 5 results in the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Pulling the lever, in this view, is not just permissible, but morally obligatory. Deontologists, on the other hand, adhere to a system of moral rules and duties. Immanuel Kant, a leading figure in deontology, famously argued that it is always wrong to treat a person as a mere means to an end. From a deontological perspective, sacrificing 1 person to save 5, even with good intentions, violates this fundamental principle. It reduces the individual to a mere instrument in a moral calculus, stripping them of their inherent dignity and right to life. The trolley problem reveals the limitations of both frameworks. Consequentialism, while intuitively appealing in its focus on maximizing happiness, can lead to morally repugnant outcomes if taken to its logical extreme. Deontology, while upholding individual rights, can appear inflexible and insensitive to the nuances of real-world situations. The trolley problem, then, is not about finding the right answer. It's about acknowledging the complexity of moral decision-making and the inherent limitations of any single ethical framework. Thomson further complicates the trolley problem with a thought experiment known as the transplant surgeon scenario. Picture a brilliant surgeon with 5 dying patients in desperate need of organ transplants. Each patient requires a different organ to survive. A healthy young traveler walks into the hospital for a routine checkup. The surgeon realizes that the traveler is a perfect match for all 5 patients. Should the surgeon sacrifice the traveler to save the 5 lives at stake?
The transplant surgeon scenario highlights a crucial difference from the original trolley problem, the element of consent. In the trolley problem, all parties involved are assumed to be innocent bystanders. However, in the transplant scenario, actively killing the traveler to harvest their organs constitutes a grave violation of their autonomy and right to life. Even if the surgeon could justify their actions on consequentialist grounds, the lack of consent introduces a profound moral barrier.
Perhaps Thomson's most enduring contribution to moral philosophy is the violinist thought experiment. Imagine waking up one morning to find yourself connected to a famous violinist.
You learn that I have a fatal kidney ailment, and you are the only one with the right blood type to save my life.
You have been hooked up to the violinist without your consent and must remain connected for 9 months for them to recover. Do you have a moral obligation to remain connected even at the expense of your own bodily autonomy?
Just think about it. Would you feel obligated to stay connected to me, even if it means sacrificing your own bodily autonomy?
Thomson's violinist analogy directly addresses the ethics of abortion, particularly in cases of rape. Just as you are not obligated to sacrifice your bodily autonomy to save the violinist, a woman who becomes pregnant through rape is not morally obligated to carry the pregnancy to term.
Thomson argues that while the fetus has a right to life, this right does not supersede the woman's right to bodily autonomy.
It's a powerful analogy that challenges us to think deeply about the balance between rights and moral obligations. Section 6, Beyond Utilitarianism, exploring the value of individual rights. Thomson's thought experiments challenge the limitations of purely utilitarian approaches to ethics. While maximizing happiness and minimizing suffering are laudable goals, Thomson argues that they cannot come at the expense of individual rights. Her work underscores the importance of consent, bodily autonomy, and the inherent dignity of each person. The transplant surgeon scenario demonstrates that even in life or death situations, we cannot simply disregard the rights of one person to benefit others. Thomson's work sparked a renewed interest in rights-based approaches to ethics. Her thought experiments forced philosophers to grapple with the complex relationship between individual rights and the greater good. She demonstrated that even in seemingly intractable moral dilemmas, there is space for nuanced thinking that respects both the value of human life and the importance of individual autonomy.